There Are No Words is a very deeply personal documentary from Toronto filmmaker Min Sook Lee, which follows the trail of grief left behind when her mother died by suicide when she was a preteen. The director's Lee's mother died by suicide when the director was 12 years old, and in this film she aims to fill up the vacuum of information that was left behind after the sudden death. Her journey to find out more about who her mother was takes her through her hometown, Toronto, and ancestral South Korea. There Are No Words is directed by Min Sook Lee, and she has previously directed documentaries such as The Real Inglourious Bastards and Migrant Dreams, and There Are No Words just debuted at the 2025 Toronto International Film Festival in the TIFF Docs section. There Are No Words is a very personal documentary by director Min Sook Lee, but it's not one of those documentaries that is so personal to the filmmaker that for the viewer it's hard to like get a grasp of what it means to that filmmaker. But this film, it's kind of strange to say accessible, but where there are themes and there are characters, there are people in this film who we can relate to, and in that way it gets us as a viewer as an insight into the directors, how she's feeling and how she's lived her life, and how the suicide of her mother has really affected her throughout her whole life. The film jumps back between her hometown Toronto and her father and mother's hometown in South Korea, and just interviews a whole wide range of many people in her family, like uncles and aunties and family friends. But the main focus of the film is her father, who is about 19 years old now, and he still has a very sharp memory, and he still knows, he has a very self-aware of who he is, and he's kind of like in a self-reflecting mood of his life. In a lot of ways, he's very frank about who he is and about the life that he's lived, but he's also there is one specific topic that he is not very open about, and it's through these interviews with the director Lee's family that we get a lot of information about her mother and who she was. And we as a viewer, we basically sitting alongside the director, finding out this information about her mother at the same time as director. And the director Lee, she's like surprised and as we are as a viewer when she finds out information about her mother throughout the film, and her father as well. The director Lee, she always saw her mother as a very introverted, quiet person, and as the film goes on, she finds out when she talks to family members, especially family members from South Korea, before her father and mother immigrated to Canada, her mother was very not like introverted. She was very like bossy and very talkative, and a much different character than her mother remembered. And we find out that her mother Lee did live quite a difficult life for most of her life. And the film touches on a whole wide range of very hard-hitting subjects like domestic violence and the nature of identity and family in Korea, and there's these cultural gaps that if you're not Korean, it's very different to other Asian communities, other cultures, where like culture and family is so important in Korea, and even the director and her mother. But definitely the most impactful element of this film is the interviews with her father, because as the film goes on, because the father is quite open when the documentary starts, but then as the film goes on and on, and more truths and interviews, and then his daughter gets more information and more interviews with the family members, her father is not so open to talk about or to admit the faults in his life and in his history. So while this film doesn't have any easy answers, I do think the director did I would hope she was able to obtain her goal, like get a full, like a whole image of who her mother really was. I think the director does a great job of portraying that to the viewer of what kind of a life, what kind of a mother she was, and what kind of a woman she was. And despite everything that happened in her life, she really did love her children. And the director really does a great job of, even though it's a very personal story to her, she brings us along along the journey with her, and it does end up being quite very emotional and impactful. And I was quite moved by this film by the end. I give There Are No Words 4 stars out of 5. This is a very personal documentary for the director Min Sook Lee, but the director Lee, she does a very good job of taking the viewer along with her on this journey. So we find out all of the information and about her mother throughout the film, and we're along with the director, like listening to her family members and interviews with her father, and it all comes to a head at the end of the film, which is quite heartfelt and emotional and quite moving. So I definitely recommend checking out this film, There Are No Words. Thanks for watching. What did you think of There Are No Words? Please comment below what you thought of the film. See you next time. Bye.